Hello, I've got a few art related materials that I've bought over the last month to share with you today. So let's open them up and take a look. So first of all, nothing terribly exciting. A couple of pads of Canson XL watercolour paper, which I love for swatching and playing around with, and I think works best with super granulating watercolours. I like the texture and the smoothness of it. There's not a regular texture, like a weave pattern or anything like that. But I've opened these first because I will be needing them at some point during this video, as I've completely run out. So I've got a box here from Bromley Art Supplies. So this is a product that I've been wanting to try out for a little while. And it's Daniel Smith's watercolour sticks. There were a few Daniel Smith watercolours which I wanted to try out. So when I saw this set from Bromley on sale, I picked it up because it had 3 of the colours in, which I've been wanting to try out, plus the 2 extra colours which I've got small tubes of, but really like. I think there are a few sets like this with 5 watercolour sticks in, and this is the granulating set. So this contains Serpentine Genuine, which is one that I was after, Sodalite Genuine, which I've got, Lunar Black, which I wanted to try out, Piemontite Genuine, which I've wanted to try for a while, but the actual tubes of paint are quite expensive, and Hematite Genuine, which I have and absolutely love. You can buy the sticks individually, and I think they're about £12 each, regardless of what series the watercolour is in. They don't have watercolour sticks in the full range of Daniel Smith colours, but I think this is quite a cost-effective way of getting some. So they come with this little case, which is quite a neat way of containing them. And it looks like there's only thin plastic joints, so you could actually snip these off and have as many as you wanted together. I also bought a couple of other cases because Bromley Art Supplies was one of the few places I could find these sold individually, and they're fairly inexpensive, I think a couple of pounds. So I picked up a couple either to use with taking oil pastels with me for travelling, or in case I get any more watercolour sticks in the future. So I'll open everything up first, but then I'll come back later in the video and have a play with these and swatch them out. And then I think in my last art haul video, I had a Maimeri blue watercolour dot chart with 6 colours in. And I actually chose to get one of those colours, which was the Payne's Grey, and I was quite intrigued by it because it's a single pigment Payne's Grey. This is the dot card that I had, and it's PBK 26. Though I can't see that information on the tube, unless it's microscopic somewhere. I'll swatch that out later as well and compare it with my other Payne's Greys. And then another thing I got, which is really satisfying, is this container for my Flashe Paints. I'd been keeping them in the cardboard box that they arrived in, so I measured them and went online looking for something a bit more robust. And I love these storage containers made by the Really Useful Box company. It's quite robust and it fits in my 16 jars, and then the small tubes that I've got around the sides perfectly. So I'm really happy with that. This is the 7-litre tub. I'll put links to everything in the description box down below. And then each year I buy a calendar made by an artist. So this year I've been using Emma Carlisle's sketchbook calendar. And I've really enjoyed that. And this year I've gone for Matt Johnson's Cornwall calendar. I follow him on Instagram and really enjoy his art. This was really reasonably priced as well. Though I wasn't expecting it to be quite so big, and it doesn't fit in my usual calendar gap over my desk, so I should have read the details a bit more closely. I really like how Matt Johnson shows you some of his processes. And I'll enjoy seeing those this coming year. And also, talking of art related to Cornwall, I picked up this zine from Melanie Chadwick, Landscapes of the Lizard, Volume 1. And she included a lovely little postcard and card. I really like Melanie's sketchy style. She uses brighter greens than I do, but they never seem to look too gaudy in her work. I just like looking at all the different layers and textures that she includes. Yeah, so really lovely. And then I've got a box from Jackson's Art Supplies. Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who uses the Jackson's Art links in my description boxes, which mean I build up some credit with them, because about half of this was paid for with that credit. So I had a couple of things sitting in my basket for a while, because I've been enjoying the Khadi paper in my fat book. I thought it'd be nice to get a couple of these smaller packs of paper. In the Khadi fat book, it's 100 grams per square metre, so this is a little bit thicker. I thought that'd be nice to try. I like the idea of these to go on card fronts for cards that I sell on my craft market. So yeah, I had a few things sitting in my basket, and then I saw the early Black Friday sale, and one thing tempted me, and that's the Holbein Artist's Gouache Paints. So I bought the 18 colour set, and I'll have a play with those later in this video and swatch them out. But I'll take a look at them now. Ooh, that's so nice. Oh, that's great. It's got leaf green. I used the Holbein leaf green watercolour paint. And then I've been on the lookout for something to store my loose oil pastels in particular my Snellier ones, because the colours of them aren't very accurate to their lay down colour. I find it really hard to pick up the right one. when they're just in a jumbled mass. So I've been looking for something where I can put them in compartments, have a swatch sheet next to me, and then I can go to exactly the right colour I need more quickly. I actually think it's one of the reasons I've not been using my Snellier oil pastels that much compared to my other brands. Because I bought quite a few of them open stock, I've just been storing them in this old Prismacolor box. So that's my blues and my greens. So like this one, for example, it just looks dark. It's not a good representation of the laydown colour. Quite a few of the transparent ones are like that. So this is actually a Jackson's Art soft pastel case. And I counted up and it's got the right number of sections that I need. Although I think the openings are a bit too small, but I was thinking I might cut them down with a craft knife to fit. Or actually they might even, my shorter ones will fit in anyway. I mean, there's quite a bit of wasted space in between them, but if it means I actually start using them more, and then I think it's worth it. So if you're going to use them for the soft pastels, they fit in nicely there. So I'm quite pleased with that actually. I think that's going to work okay. And then I'll just make a swatch sheet of them in the exact order that I store them in and keep that in here. And obviously it's a bit more bulky than the Prismacolor tin, but I don't really mind that. So I've realised this is actually quite a storagey type art haul today. Because I bought a Pan Pastel palette with a cover. I've got one of these and it's great. But I've got some additional colours now, and for some reason I've knocked this stack over I don't know how many times and broken the pastels, and then I keep having to repair them by pouring isopropyl alcohol on them and mushing them up a bit and then squashing them down again, which does work, but I think it's time to switch to one of these. I've been putting it off because these are quite expensive for what they are. I think they're about £22. So I'll open it up and show you how they are. So they just slot in like this. Yeah, they tend to crack a bit after I've repaired them, so it's not that brilliant a solution. And then in this box, I've got one more Pan Pastel. So this is Yellow Ochre Extra Dark. Just a lovely deep olivey green. I've got the Chromium Oxide green. You can see the difference with it there. So I'll rearrange these later. And the lids just hold them tightly so things can't move around too much. Yeah, and they stack. And the last things I've got to show you are a couple of books, and I managed to get them both second hand. They're in pretty good condition. I'll always try and get things second hand if I can. So the first is a book called Plants for Free by Sharon Amos. and it talks about the best plants for taking cuttings from and things like that. But I got it because I really like the illustrations. I think they'll be really nice for gouache inspiration. Get to the plant section and show you. So yeah, just lovely simplified versions of loads of different flowers. So lots of lovely inspiration there. And then this is the last book I got, which is Illustrators Sketchbooks, compiled by Martin Salisbury. And I think actually I saw this mentioned by Emma Carlisle on her Instagram account, because she does actually feature in the book. So this is in a second hand, this is in really good nick. I'm quite pleased. And it's just going through lots of different illustrators, and you've got pages from their sketchbooks. And there are all sorts of different styles and things. But when I saw a flick through on Emma Carlisle's Instagram, I just liked how much variation there was and how interesting it looked. It's a really hefty book. I was hoping it would just give me a little bit more courage to try different things out with my sketchbooks. And I've actually ordered a new Talon's Art Creation sketchbook, which hasn't arrived yet, solely for the purpose of doing really bad art and giving myself permission to not stress about what goes in there. I think every time I get a new sketchbook, I have that intention with it, but then I do a couple of things I like in it and then get a bit precious about it and don't want to put stuff in there that I don't like. So this is going to sound really silly. I've even bought a sketchbook in a colour I don't like so much, which is bright yellow, partly because it was the cheapest one on Amazon out of all the colours, and partly as a reminder that I'm not allowed to get too attached and precious about it. So we'll see how that goes. Let's just find Emma Carlisle's section. I'm assuming this is alphabetical. Yeah, there we go. It's just really interesting being able to see up close other people's mark making and colour lay down. Yeah, so the Illustrators Sketchbooks by Martin Salisbury. So I'll do some swatching now. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you might have seen my watercolour swatch folder that I've put together recently. So I'll swatch this Maimeri Blue Payne's Grey, and because it's going to go in the folder, I've got a couple of like spare cards and swatch squares at the back, so I'll just swatch it straight onto one of these. I did find the Maimeri Blue colours do re-wet really nicely So it's more of a blue leaning Payne's grey. I've been trying to do my swatch squares with a bit of a gradient, with them more heavy on the left hand top corner. And I'm not too worried about messy edges because I guillotine them down and stick them onto a little card for my swatch folder. So I know it's not dried yet, but I'll just take a look at them compared to my other Payne's greys. That's actually a very blue Payne's grey. I thought that the A Gallo Payne's grey was blue, but this is it, another step again. In fact, I'll take a look at them compared to the dark blues. Yeah, I was wondering how close to Soda Light it was. It's definitely cooler than the anthraquinone in Xanthrone Blues. Yeah, I'd say it's actually closest to Soda Light, though it's not identical to anything else that I've got. That's Indigo. So Snellier Indigo, Jackson's Indigo. Yep, that's an interesting one. And then for Daniel Smith's watercolour sticks, I'll just have a play with them on paper first. I think they can be used a number of ways, though I don't think the particular intention is that they're used like crayons. I mean, you can do, I guess, but... So, just as a comparison to the texture of them, they're a lot drier and kind of denser than oil pastels, but as you can see they do lay down. From what I understand though, it will leave some of the line underneath. Actually, I'm lifting that up fairly well. Yeah, that's a much better way to use them. So I think people chop these up and pop them into half pans and just use them as like you would a normal pan of paint. Do seem to re-wet nice and easily. So yeah, this is Serpentine Genuine. And I think the other thing you can do if you want a decent amount of paint is to mix them directly into water. So pop a bit in there. And I think this is why the separate containers are great, because I'm happy just to chuck them back in a bit wet and let them get messy. So that works pretty well. There is some bit of variation in stick size. This is Piemontite Genuine. So this one's a little bit harder to re-wet. It's a lovely colour though. I'll probably make swatch squares for these as well, for my watercolour folder. Just see how concentrated I can build up the colour. These do feel very dense and like there's a lot of pigment packed into them. Just want to do a really wet wash to let the granulation do what it wants to do. And then the other new to me colour is Lunar Black. Oops. So this is PBK 11 and it's a really heavily granulating black. And the only other version I've got of this is Roman Schmall's Aquarius Black. And I really, really like it. I've used it a lot. And I just fancied having it in another version that I can pop into other pans if I want to take it out with me somewhere. I'll do a really watery one on this side. Actually, I just want to see what happens when you use the stick wet. No, that's not very nice to use. Let's try it in water. Yeah, that's better. I'm not entirely sure why you'd want super concentrated areas, but you might, and that's quite nice to do it that way. Let's see if it left lines. Yes, I think it's a bit hard to show you, but I think there are some lines left by the crayon underneath that. And then I'll just do a quick swatch of, which one's this? Soda Light. I just think Soda Light's the nicest dusky, dark, bluey grey. And then Hematite Genuine. Sorry, I always think it would be nice to have really pretty, neat swatching pages, but it never goes that way. So I guess when I'm using them, you can see I'm making a right mess doing it this way. But I guess I'd peel back some of the stick and just pick it up like that normally. And my other Hematite Genuine is harder to re-wet as well. I think quite a few of the Primatech colours are. Let's speed it up slightly. Yeah, I'm quite happy with those. I think they're quite versatile. So I think if you get a sharp kitchen knife, they're easy enough to chop chunks off to fit into whatever pan you want to put them in. So now that they've largely dried, I'll just compare them to other watercolours that I've got. I did a video on natural landscape greens a while back, and quite a few people recommended the Serpentine to me after that video. So it's got some granulation going on, or separation of the green and brown. And I'd say it's most similar to, like, colour-wise, Core's Sap Green. But it's not identical to anything else that I've got. And then the Piemontite is most similar to the PR101s. And then, as I said, I've just got one PBK11, which is Roman Schmoll's Aquarius Black. I think that's got a slightly more yellowy undertone to it. The Aquarius Black seems to have like a larger granulation pattern than the Lunar Black. Though that's only one swatch out, so it might not be completely representative. And then the Sodalite I've shown you. And that's the Hematite Genuine there. It does seem like if you want to get good granulation with these watercolour sticks though, you do need to mix up a decent amount of paint with them, because you're not going to get as heavy granulation as that with just, you know, a quick swipe over the stick. And then finally I'll have a quick play with the Holbein gouache paints. The only other Holbein gouache that I've used is the permanent white, and I really like this one. So I'm hoping the quality of the rest will be equivalent to this, because that'd be great. And then I've got one Caran d'Ache gouache, cyan, but the gouache that I usually use is Winsor & Newton Designers Gouache, and I've got quite a few of those. I've had them for quite a few years now, and I do enjoy them a lot. So this was more about curiosity than anything. I won't swatch them all out now, I'll just have a play with a couple. Let's try the leaf green. So this is just a Rosemary & Co. Ivory short flat. So straight out of the tube, I have a very nice consistency. Not too thick, but definitely good coverage. Just pull out a similar Winsor & Newton one. This is Winsor & Newton's Linden Green. Yeah, if anything, I think the Holbein feels slightly thicker and creamier. Not that this is a very representative swatching. That's lovely. So this is Carmine. I'm just going to see what information is on the tube. Pigment name, semi-opaque, and that's 2-star. So Holbein's light fast stars are usually out of 3. So 2 on that. I know that leaf green is 3 in their watercolour paint. It's 2-star for that. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. So that's 4-star, so they're not out of 3. I'm mistaken. Yeah, I'm not sure why they've got a different light fast system than their watercolours. I'll have to look up about that. And this is Winsor & Newton's Primary Red. So they're fairly similar, but again I'd say that the Holbein gouache is that little bit thicker and creamier. One other thing I'm curious to see is how closely the gouache colour matches the watercolours with the same name. So I've got leaf green in here. And this is the watered down version of the gouache. So they're not identical, but pretty similar. So I'll do a full video, I think, swatching those out and a fuller comparison. And I want to get to the bottom of their light fast ratings and figure out just how light fast these actually are. Because this is my Winsor & Newton swatch chart for gouache. And I've just mixed them with white for the little caterpillar things. But the Winsor & Newton have got pretty good light fast, and it's the same system as their watercolours. So AA, A, the Bengal rose is a lower one, that's C, but most of them are A's. Because if I'm going to be selling things, which I occasionally sell gouache pieces on my craft market, I want to be using the most light fast ones. So I hope there were some interesting things there for you to take a look at. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Bye!